Bryson bows out why a long-serving MP is saying so long to politics.
Live from our Maritimes News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Steve Murphy.
He is a household name in the Annapolis Valley, the Member of Parliament for that area for 22 years. He's also known across Canada. But today, Scott Bryson says he's ending his political career, resigning from the Trudeau cabinet and not running in the upcoming election. CTV's Laura Brown tonight with his reasons and the response from the people who've elected him so many times.
He's worn the blue and the red, survived 7 federal elections, and has spent 22 years as Member of Parliament for Kings Hants. At 51, Scott Bryson is hanging up his political hat, wanting to wear another one full-time.
I was 46 when our daughters were born, and I want to get this right.
He made the announcement today, choosing not to reoffer in the upcoming federal election, which means he's also resigned from his role as president of the Treasury Board in Justin Trudeau's cabinet.
We're going to miss him tremendously, but I know that his daughters Claire and Rose missed him much more over the past years.
Speaking from his home along the Minas Basin, Bryson says it's time.
It's hard to leave because politics is not a job. It's more than a career. It's really a life. But it's not just a life for one person, it's a life for a whole family.
Bryson was first elected as a Conservative in 1997.
I believe he should be in the House of Commons.
But stepped down briefly in 2000 so former Prime Minister Joe Clark could take a seat. In 2002, he publicly came out, stating he was not a gay politician, but a politician who happens to be gay. A year later, he crossed the floor and has been a Liberal ever since.
Scott was a real leader, you know. He could laugh at himself. And mind you, there's a lot to laugh at.
First of all, I was surprised. Scott and I have had a tremendous relationship. He's been a great voice for Nova Scotia, inside and outside of government.
I know he certainly supported this riding and has been vocal in Parliament, has been well respected around here.
And it's in his riding, Nova Scotia's Annapolis Valley, where Bryson's news is the talk of the town.
I'm really disappointed. He's been around for a long time, and he's a great guy. We could always depend on him showing up different places all the time.
Many curious about who will run instead.
Well, I was thinking about that earlier when I heard the news tonight. I thought, wow, those are big shoes to fill.
Bryson's replacement a concern for William Devitt.
He's done a wonderful job for us. He's done a wonderful job for disabled people such as myself. And hopefully we're going to get somebody just as well that cares about the community as well as he did.
And with that, Bryson says he's walking off the field with his head held high.
And excited about the next chapter.
He says he doesn't know what that chapter will hold, only that he's ready.
Over the years.
And Steve, whoever wins the federal Liberal nomination in Kings Hants can expect to see Scott Bryson shoulder to shoulder, helping them out on the doorstep. And while there's plenty of speculation about who that might be, there's nothing confirmed just yet. Steve.
All right, Laura, thanks. We'll be speaking with Scott Bryson live here in the second half hour. CTV's Laura Brown in the news. Coming next, it's goodbye to public service. He's the only Member of Parliament that people in Kings Hants have known for many, many years, but that will soon be changing. Scott Bryson bows out. We talk to him about why. Next on CTV News. One of this region's longest-serving members of Parliament has decided to get out of politics. The Treasury Board President Scott Bryson, Member of Parliament for Kings Hants, will be resigning from the cabinet and says he will not run again in the fall. He was first elected as a progressive Conservative in 1997, crossed the floor to join the Liberals under Paul Martin in 2004. He famously said then that he didn't leave his party left him. And now he is leaving Parliament, and the Honourable Scott Bryson is here to talk to us tonight. What goes through your mind when you look at that man from 20 years ago, that younger Bryson? What would you tell him?
I would just say that he hasn't changed a bit.
Okay.
That's what I would say when I look at those pictures. I had trouble discerning whether that was a recent or whether that was from 20 years ago. And you know, that's not bad, because politics, you see, has no stress, so it doesn't age you a bit.
Absolutely not. You are, however, known as a man who loves politics, and you loved being in power. And the last time I asked you about running again, you didn't sound like a man who was getting out. This sounds like it maybe kind of came out of the blue.
No, Steve.
No?
I've gone at this at 120% overdrive for almost 22 years. That's the way I do things. Like I throw myself into them, both as a member of Parliament and as a cabinet minister for 2 prime ministers. I've given it my all, and I'm still giving it my all now. And that's the way I want to go out. I do not want to sort of, over a period of time, lose that level of enthusiasm and focus. I want to leave with my head held high, having served the people of Kings Hants, Nova Scotia, and Canada, having made a difference in the lives of people, and now being able to go on to a new chapter where I focus on what is right for my family. And I think after 22 years of public service, I have that right to focus on my family.
In politics, though, as in life, timing is everything. So why now? What's right about now?
I always thought it's a better thing to leave on top than, you know, in politics it's hard to, there's always more things you can do. But in a lot of times politics, people leave in a body bag or they're airlifted off the field. And I chose to walk off on my own steam, by my own volition, and with a great deal of excitement for the next chapter. So today I've been so happy because I've been filled with pride over what our government, what Prime Minister Trudeau and our government has been able to achieve, and my part in that, but also an excitement about the future and the next chapter for Max and our family.
Speaking of the future, you are on the witness list to testify against Vice Admiral Norman. That's going to happen in August and September in the run-up to a federal election. How did that factor into this decision?
Was a non-factor. It wasn't a factor at all.
As a practical matter, though, would you be able to effectively campaign if you were waiting to give testimony in a high-profile criminal trial?
I will be campaigning for a Liberal member in Kings Hants, and I'll be helping support Liberal campaigns in other areas, and I support our government. And in fact, we're going to have a very robust, I suspect, nomination race for the Kings Hants Liberal candidate, and I look forward to supporting that candidate.
As you know, the lawyers for the Vice Admiral have accused you of trying to delay that supply ship contract at the behest of the Irvings. That's information and testimony that's going to be coming out in the run-up to an election. How would it be campaigning with that kind of information on the front pages and in the newscasts every night?
I'm not going to comment on something before the courts. This is actually a matter between the prosecution and Vice Admiral Norman. As President of the Treasury Board, I've done my job and have always done a good job in working hard to fulfill my responsibilities in terms of governance and in terms of expenditure of public funds, and that's something I've always done.
You have said you're going to be leaving the cabinet. Are you going to resign your seat before the election?
In the coming weeks, there's a lot of work that I want to get done, and I want to think about that. Right now, I want to step back. I want to think about the future. I want to reflect on what's going on. I must say I've been really deeply moved by the expressions of support today, and people have been just wonderful. And people have been wonderful to Max and Rose and Claire and me in the last few years, and it just means a lot. That's
your Christmas card, by the way. They're growing up on you, Scott. They'll be 5 in May, I think.
They are. I said to them over Christmas, I said, look, Daddy might do something else, and what do you think of that? And Claire said, Daddy, people change, and they want to do different things.
Do they understand what Daddy does?
I said, what do you want me to do next? And she said, you should be a doctor. So I don't know whether you have any pull over at the Dalhousie Medical School, and whether they would factor in political experience into that.
You've got a lot of political experience. What do you consider to be your major political accomplishment?
I actually believe that a lot of what we've done as a government for Atlantic Canada, in partnership with Atlantic Canada, the Atlantic Growth Strategy, the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, this is unprecedented that we actually bake in now cooperation between the federal government and the 4 Atlantic premiers working together in harmony, tackling some of the biggest challenges in our region, like the demographic trend line and attracting attracting more new Canadians. That's something I'm very proud of. But there, you ask a question, there's a lot of things that I'm really proud of in terms of my department, things we've been able to achieve in terms of regulatory competitiveness, digital government, things that I've taken on. But I tell you one thing that I never expected when I entered politics to be something that I would look back on as something that I'm proud, and that is that I actually, I'm not an activist, but by simply living my life openly and honestly.
Yeah, and you said today in your letter that your life has only been possible in a country like Canada. Yours has been a life of firsts. You're Canada's first openly gay minister, the first federal politician to wed your same-sex partner. One presumes one doesn't do those things to be first, but how do you feel about having been first at those things?
Well, I was just living my life. And when I entered politics, Steve, federal public servants did not have same-sex pension benefits. I remember those debates. When I entered public life, a family like mine simply could not exist openly with the support of the state. And over the course of my political life, I've been able to be part of those debates and be able to help shape that kind of progress that has benefited Canadians, but also has benefited me and helped enable me to have a family. I feel profoundly lucky, and I tell you, Steve, when in this age of cynicism, when people say that politics doesn't matter, and Parliament doesn't matter, and government doesn't matter, I tell you, they're going to have a debate with me because my family matters, and if it weren't for politics, if it weren't for leadership, I would not have the opportunity to have a family like mine in Canada. And that's the kind of progressive nation we have built because of politics and because of good people in politics.
Are you through with politics forever or just for now?
Who knows?
Would you be interested in being Premier of Nova Scotia?
Right now.
If the leadership of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party comes available, will you consider that?
We've got an exceptional Premier, and I spoke to him this morning. And I think if you'd have to, if I were to do that, I would hope that my next husband would be on board.
Your next husband.
But I'm really, I'm looking forward to doing something different for this chapter of my life.
But you don't really know what. Will you go back to business? You did very well in business. You're an investment banker.
Look, I've done a lot of business, and I've done a lot of politics, and I like both. At this stage of my life, I want to do something different.
All right.
And I want to actually spend a little more time with my kids, and
go to medical school.
And the other thing too, there's a practical reality here. If I had run in 2019, Max would have shot me, and that would have meant I would have been dead. Max would be in jail, and I don't know who would have taken care of Rose and Claire. And the other thing I'm thinking of, Steve, is once you're done in your job, I want to replace you and give the gears to people like me for the next few years. That's what I wanted to do. Steve, it's been a pleasure, and I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed
courtesies over the years, Mr.
Yeah,
Bryson.
well, I've always enjoyed. You're a great fella.
Likewise. Thank you very much. The Honourable Scott Bryson, still a member of Parliament for Kings Hants, still a cabinet minister, I think, until Monday.
Yes, sir.
We'll be back with more here in just a moment. Mr. Bryson, thanks.
Thanks very much.